Hello and welcome to today's video. Today I'm reviewing a pen from a brand I've never reviewed. In fact, this is the first pen from this brand that I have used. The brand is Delta, and this is how the pen comes packaged. And the pen we're looking at is the Signs of Time pen, and I have the medieval art version here. Quick little bit of background about Delta. They really probably need no introduction. If you're watching this channel, you are probably familiar with Delta. They were a brand who, from like the 1980s to the mid-2010s, were one of the leading Italian pen brands, and they kind of folded. And then Nino Marino relaunched the brand a few years ago and has been making amazing, beautiful pens for Delta once again. So it's an Italian brand, and they do beautiful things. This Signs of the Time pen comes in 12 different versions, available only in 2025, as far as I know. Actually, that's the front of the box there. It should be on there. It's a series of 12 pens that highlight, through colors of materials and things like that, periods of art that were particularly influential, shall we say. So this particular pen captures the dark, intense tones of medieval art with Gothic details and hues of things like the cathedrals, the frescoes, and the manuscripts of the time. So, take that sleeve off. We've got a simple cardboard box here, which opens up and out. And here is the pen. Now, I purchased this from Stilo e Stile in Italy. Wonderful shop, great prices. And as soon as I saw this pen, I kind of knew I had to have it. I've been looking at getting a Delta for a while and had my eyes on another model. And then when I saw this one, I was like, nah, this is what I'm having. So that is the pen. Also in this box, we get, technical features, all that kind of stuff. And then a little book about the different models. So, you've got the neoclassicism there. You've got the Rococo, the Baroque, which also was almost on my list. Renaissance, and there's the medieval art. Now, as you can see, the image of the medieval art and the actual pen itself are a little different, but beautiful colors and all that kind of stuff. So that is the packaging. We're going to talk about the parts and features of this pen today, and then I'll do a writing sample size comparison, all that kind of stuff. So it is a numbered edition, and mine is numbered on the back here, and that's nice. I think it says 160, if I can make that out. It says medieval art, and then on the top here it says Delta, Italy. On the top of the pen is a medieval style shield, and then it's a step, steps onto the cap, which swells slightly to this center band, or this clip band, I should say. A very nice, clean clip with a little ball on the end there. It's a very usable clip, and all the furniture on this particular model is ruthenium coated, which is beautiful, I think. So the cap swells and then tapers a little bit to this little step down onto the barrel, and the barrel swells and then tapers to another ruthenium ring here, and then the end of the pen. It's got a little sort of slightly peaked end finial there. It is a twist cap pen, and it comes off in just around 1 and a little bit turns. Then we get a little step down onto some nice, smooth, blocky threads. A relatively short but sort of good-sized section with the tiny little flare, and then a Jowo number 6 nib here. And I have this in the fine flex version. There are a range of different versions. It comes in extra fine, medium broad, extra fine flex, 1.1 and 1.5 millimeter stub. So lots of good options. And as tying in with the color, the ruthenium trim of this is the black version. The pen has the Delta logo as well as Delta Italy engraved in it there. As you can see, the version of the flex one has the little cutouts on the side to allow the tines just to sort of push back a little bit as well. And there is the plastic feed. Now, this is a standard international cartridge converter pen, and it comes with a Delta branded Schmidt converter, and it is a threaded converter. I'll try and take it out as cleanly as possible. It's a threaded converter there. So nice and secure, no worries whatsoever. And, I'm a big fan of cartridge converter. I find them easy to clean, easy to change out inks and things like that. And this is a pen I really quite enjoy. It feels really nice in the hand. It's got a great look to it. I love the subtleties of the colors in the material. There's a lot going for this pen, and as I said, this is a numbered special edition, and there are 12 different color versions, so there's sort of something for everyone. For the size comparison today, I've just got it alongside the standard Lamy Safari. You see it's around that same sort of 140mm length. That's kind of like, for me, the standard sort of pen length. Uncapped, it's a little shorter than a Lamy Safari, but it's got a nice little bit of girth on it with that number 6 size nib. If we go, end of section to end of section, the nib is longer, but we lose a little bit on the body there, but it's got a nice width in the hand. The Signs of Time pen does post really nicely. It makes it a great length in the hand. It's very balanced, and it's slightly shorter there than the Lamy Safari. Okay, so what are the specific dimensions of the Delta Signs of Time pen? Well, it is 140mm when it is capped. It's 123 when it's uncapped. I find it perfectly fine length in my hand here. It may be a little short for some people, but really I think most people will find this absolutely fine enough to write with. It's 159 when it's posted. Once again, I find this very, very comfortable. The balance is good. Where it sits in my hand feels nice, and it's a very, very nice length, and it caps just beyond that uncomfortable spot on the webbing of the hand. Middle of the section is about 11mm, and around the cap at its widest point is about 16mm. The entire pen weighs 24 grams, 16 in the body, 8 in the cap. So 16 grams, nice lightweight pen. 24 grams, slightly heavier in the hand, definitely not heavy, but heavier, but also nicely balanced because the weight of the pen sits just that little bit down into the hand there, which makes it very, very comfortable. Okay, time for the writing sample now. As a slightly closer look there at that nib. So we have the Delta Signs of Time. So this is the medieval art version. This has a number 6 steel fine flex nib made by Yovo. The ink in this is Ackerman Garuda Rude. So this is me writing with no pressure on the fine flex. One thing I will say at the outset is that this particular nib, it may just be the angle I write on, it may be that it is a fine flex, writes much better in a right-handed position than in a left-handed position. I'll show a little bit of that in a second, but let's do some writing. Okay, so when it's writing well and when I've got the angle right, and you can see if I shift my angle from that way to more sort of this sort of angle, just turning a little bit, the writing experience is infinitely better. The problem with a lot of flex nibs and left-handed writers is that as we push and pull the pen around the page, we're not getting the nib to do its natural flex motion. It's a fairly wet writer. Reverse writing is sharp and very fine, but doable. And as I said, this is a fine flex nib, so I'll get it into a good position to give it its best opportunity. But that's me applying a small amount of pressure to get the flex, not pushing the pen outside of its comfort zone. So single, standard line, and then applying more pressure. And not only are you making a slightly wide line or railroaded it out there, but you're also making it very, very wet. Fast writing. Like, we notice a couple of little splits there. I will just do a little bit of right-hand writing, so forgive this. you can see it writes really smooth and consistent in a more natural right-handed position. It's not necessarily wetter or drier, it's just a little bit more consistent. And I feel like, as I said, if I have the pen on this kind of angle, it's like there's a sweet spot where you can actually feel it kick into being extra sort of smooth. Don't get that so much when you're writing on that angle. So it's just something to be aware of. I think this is a really nice writing nib. Like, the flex isn't like particularly vast. And I don't consider these flex nibs, these fine, extra fine flex nibs. What I consider them is kind of like the pilot nibs. They're a little bit soft. You know, if you're writing, I don't know if you ought to get this to right-handed, but like, you know, and you decide to, you know, apply a little bit more pressure on the downstrokes, you just get a slight little bit of character or color to the writing. When it's no pressure, you're kind of writing around a fine to medium line. When you flex it out, you kind of get into about a good solid broad. So you are getting a little bit of variation, but nothing like real flex or vintage flex or anything like that. It's not designed to be. But as I said, for a right-handed writer, this pen writes spectacularly. For a left-handed writer, it writes well. You just get a couple of spots where you're not quite meeting the pen's natural sweet spot. You know, the chances are I might end up replacing this nib, for me, with like a standard final flex from Delta, you know, to sort of tie in with the pen, just so that I can, you know, have a nice sort of solid everyday writer from it. But I really wanted to see what these fine flex nibs are about, and I've got a couple of them now on pens to review, and I have to say they both perform differently, so just keep an eye out for that one. But yes, this is the writing experience with this one. So what does the Delta Signs of Time pen series cost? Well, this one was 121 euros from Stilo Estilo. I've seen it at US prices for around 145 to 150 US dollars. So it's not an inexpensive pen, but I think it's a good value pen. You know, coming from an Italian brand, you've got a good Jovo nib, cartridge converter, nice resins, and also numbered editions, things like that. You know, available for a limited time. It's I think it's a decent price, particularly in comparison to some other Delta pens, which can run much higher, even with steel nibs. So I think this is a nice option. So what are the pros and cons? The first con for me personally, it doesn't flex a whole lot. As I said, I kind of consider these to be soft in the same way I feel some pilot pens being soft, in that if you just apply a little bit of pressure as you're writing, occasionally you can just sort of get some flair on the handwriting. I also think the ink flow is a little bit inconsistent. I have had a couple of times where I have had moments of ink starvation from this nib. I will probably swap this nib out. I really like the pen body. I'll probably swap it out, see if I can get my hands on a Delta. I might as well. Black steel nib, probably in like a fine or a medium, to make this a nice sort of consistent, solid, everyday writer. I think for the flex, you just need a slightly wetter feed, and I don't think this one is necessarily doing the job. The other cons, also that flex and the inconsistency may be slightly better for a right-handed writer. So as you saw in the writing sample, when I wrote right-handed or when I changed the position on the page, the ink flow was a little more consistent. But what do I love? Firstly, I love this material. The swirls of the green, reds, and sort of browns all through that are just beautiful. Like that green swirl through there, I really love that. It does, for me, invoke those dark hues of the manuscripts and the cathedrals and things like that. Like, medieval art is sort of slightly rich and dark in its tonal colors. And I love that about this. And I love the black trim. I also love the body size. You know, like the grip section at around 11 millimeters is very comfortable. Those threads are smooth, so you never feel them under your hands, and the balance when it's posted feels really nice. It makes it a lovely size pen in the hand. It's got a nice sort of classic look, and it's an elegant pen. And because those colors are so rich and dark, they don't jump out. They don't hit you in the face, you know, like Bennu pens, for instance. I love this pen. I love the finish of this pen, but it is certainly the Delta here is certainly a more subtle pen than the Banu. And this is also subtle, this particular medieval one is subtle in comparison to some of the other finishes that come on these Signs of Time pen series. I think it's a really lovely series. I think the pens fits beautifully in the hand. It's got nice lines. I like little swells and things. It's a lovely pen. I've enjoyed using it a lot. I will continue to enjoy using it a lot. As I said, I might find I get my hands on a fine or a medium nib to put on this. I just wanted to review one of these fine flex nibs and show you my experience of them. So if you're a left-handed writer, that might be something to consider. If you're a right-handed writer, you might find it a little more consistent and enjoyable. So thank you for watching this review of the Signs of Time medieval art pen from Delta. I hope you found it interesting and useful. Please like and subscribe, hit the notifications button, all that kind of stuff. If you've got products you think I should be looking at, or if there's a way you'd like to support the channel, I would love to hear from you. In the meantime, enjoy your pens, enjoy writing, and I'll talk to you soon.